What's up, everybody? February 21st edition of the Fightful MMA podcast. Happy Family Day or former Family Day to all you Canadians that were watching yesterday and that tuned in later on. Today would be Tuesday, February 21st, a normal day, a regular day for yours truly and for most people. Unfortunately, not for a certain Elias Theodorou, and not because he got into a fight on Sunday against another professional mixed martial artist, but clearly because he doesn't realize that there should be some sort of, I don't know, like a look to when we're doing a podcast, but I'll let him speak for himself.
Just another day in the Elias schedule, I guess. Today I find myself at the lovely Lifetime Athletics out in Mississauga. I'm chilling with my brother and a couple of friends who came down to fight. And, shirt's optional. What can I say, Joe?
Shirts are always optional for you. Real quick, I think I'm having an issue here with some of the sound here with my own unit here, so I'll get you to talk momentarily. In terms of the fight, actually before the fight, what you actually did at the weigh-ins was actually awesome. There was a cake that you gave up, or you attempted to give up to your opponent. Just say, hey man, was it a happy birthday thing? Can you explain the reasoning behind that?
It was his birthday on Wednesday, and I thought of a perfect thing to basically, thank him for both the competition in regards that we're going to have, because it's an honor whenever I step in the cage against someone to fight them. And whether I have my hands raised or not, obviously now I'm going 14-1, no big deal. But the important thing being, I was kind of just killing him with kindness the whole week. I in many ways saw him earlier with his whole team, and I was all by myself. And I went up and I was like, hey, yeah, how's it going? Happy birthday. And he just wouldn't look me in the eyes. So I was like, maybe we're on to something. So I was like, no. Again, just having fun with it and killing him with kindness, and gave him a cake because I thought it'd be funny, and just wish him a happy birthday, because whether you win or lose, it's an honor to step in the cage with him, like I mentioned. But yeah, he said no bueno. And
listen.
And at the same time, he, just to interrupt you there, he obviously put up a shield while he was stating that he thought I was scared. So I thought right then and there I knew I had him, because I thought he was projecting. He was saying that I was scared, but I think he was saying that on his own account. But again, I patted him on the back, and was nothing but smiles, because I don't need to hate someone to fight them. It's all business to me.
Was there a picture of the cake somewhere?
Yeah, there's a picture online on Twitter, but basically it was an old Valentine's Day cake. So it's a big heart and an XO on it, and I wrote on it, to the birthday boy, love, to the birthday boy, health, happiness, but sorry for the L. Sincerely, the Spartan.
No way.
So, yeah. So again, he and I differ in many regards, because he needed to put himself in a aggressive, angry place to fight me. Well, I don't need that. I in many ways, I've already said, it's a job to me, and I don't need emotion, because emotion is a finite resource. And I showed on Sunday that there's no quit in me and there's no stopping me.
The mental game is extremely important for fighters. We always hear the saying that 90% of fighting is mental, 10% is physical. And a lot of guys and girls have said that they've seen fighters win and or lose at the weigh-ins, at the stare down. Obviously, I guess you could say you subscribe to this theory. How much of it is factual, do you believe?
I think it's 100%. There's certain narratives, there's certain psychological aspects. There are many things that play more than just, did I train really hard? Did he train really hard? One of the things that I kept on telling myself when I was going through it was it says the same kind of foundings in regards to, when I'm tired, they're more tired. When I'm nervous, he's more nervous. And that's what I saw going into fight week.
In terms of actually preparing for fight week, obviously, I'm sure you've seen it online. People were wondering, hey, does Elias do way too much outside of mixed martial arts and mixed martial arts training to the point where it might affect his performance? And I asked Robin Black this yesterday. He's actually your former manager. And he said, you got to, Joe. You already know this. I said, no, I know, but I'm going to ask Elias regardless. He's like, you know exactly what Elias will potentially say. And I said, well, what's that? He's like, the W still happened. So let me ask you this, for the critics that are out there that are taking shots at the Spartan, the main event, and saying, you know what, he does too many things outside of MMA, and it's affecting its performance, and it's going to affect him in the future. What say you, kind sir?
Chestnut checkers. I think in many ways, again, it is a sport, but let's not pace ourselves what we're doing. Let's not lie to ourselves. It's all about the paycheck at the end of the day, both not only in the cage and out. And I put myself in a position where I make more money outside of the cage than not. So yes, it takes away my attention in the regards that it takes hours out of my day, but there are 24 hours in the day, and I'm not a one-track minded individual. I can do many things, and I think many other people sell themselves short if they say they are otherwise. Obviously, when I get closer to the top 10, when I get closer to the top 50, or when I'm the next approaching top 15, top 10, top 5, I will have a system in place. I have a great team behind me. It's not just me doing it by myself. I have great coaches, great physio, great what do you call it, nutritionist, a great management team. Someone now I'm gonna start working in regards to getting some help in regards to the social media and understanding that aspect and how I can financially cash in on it. There's more than just fighting. If you don't set yourself up for the 10-point plan in athletics, you're honestly fucking yourself. Like, pardon my French. Like, if you don't understand that you're not going to be a professional athlete for the rest of your life, you are so in for a rude awakening. And again, I'm lucky because I'm a heavier weight class, so I'll probably be able to pretty much go into about, especially with my lack of damage, to about 35. I could easily do this without even considering the idea of retirement, because power goes last, speed goes first. If anyone, like for instance, that is way lighter than me, if they don't understand what they're going to be doing at 30, God forbid, some of them are older than 30. If you don't understand what you're doing in the next 10 years, you're really selling yourself short. And I know that there are going to be naysayers out there, but you know what? They're saying it from the comfortable seat in their couch, or their purist in regards to their critique of something like I'm doing. But I'm the new generation, and in many ways, as much as I might get some criticism of saying this, it's not necessarily a sport anymore. Look at our new owners. It's a content provider. In that format, I definitely fit. I have a national brand, an international brand, which the American side first, bought into me, bought into the belief of what I'm trying to do, being per plus, obviously. And then now the Canadian and eventually the Australian markets will open up as well. So I'm a global brand. So I'm building myself bigger than just the brand that I attach myself to. So yes, do I need to grow, whether I win or lose? But at the same time, I mentioned I went from pond hockey to the NHL in 5 years. Give me a damn break. I'm learning on the fly here. And at the same time, at the very least, what I've shown is there's no quit in me. I'm aggressive, getting more aggressive at topper opponents. I was looking for action. Look at the stats: 79 to 11 significant strikes. That's a huge difference. It takes two to tango, and I'm the better dancer. That's all we showed. And I think in many ways the same criticism came with someone like George St. Pierre, where again he wasn't necessarily finishing, and at no point am I comparing myself to him. Just in the sense of criticism that happens, you don't understand the chess that's actually happening, the ability to dominate someone. It takes two to dance. Yes, it's a silly thing that a throwaway that I say, but it's true. There's two people that are supposed to be taking part. And I did a lot of work there. So did Caesar. And it was two styles trying to work its way out. And I just showed there's no quit in me. Where I think once I was able to defend and use the defense into offense, it stopped him. And whether it was my kick or my face that broke his hand, it showed, one, I can take a punch and I'm saving it to those big money fights where it's worth my face. If we're going to talk about the aesthetics of all the aspect of, any criticism, I'm saving this moneymaker when there's $1 million on the line. If you're going to, that's what I think this is worth. And you pay for that, then I'm putting it. But at the same time, I'm willing to do that. I showed that in my only loss with Thiago Santos. I have balls, man. I would say that I'm not just a pretty face, and although I'm trying to market that as much as possible, I'm willing to put it up to the taste because I love mixed martial arts, full and foremost.
Well, unfortunately for me, and speaking of pretty face, for those that don't know, Elias and I go way back, and neither one of us are ever jealous or envious of our accomplishments, of what we've done and what we do. But I got to tell you, I do live through him every so often because the absolutely beautiful Julie Kedzie. So what I did is, while you were talking, I sent off a tweet informing peeps that we're currently live with the Fightful MMA podcast, and my guest Elias Theodorou is doing his side from the pool. Well, the beautiful and lovely, who I think is beautiful and lovely, Julie Kedzie, replies to both of us and says, WTF picks. Now, she's never said that about me, Elias. So I'm going to go and think that she's doing it about you. Because I don't think she wants to see me in my regular T-shirt, bud.
I do. So isn't that what matters? She wants to see me. I want to see you. It's even. We all win.
I got to tell you, I met Julie a few times. Have you ever met Julie, by the way?
But I'm brain dead right now. We're close on what's on Twitter. That's how we know each other. I'm almost certain we have, but if not yet, in a past life, I just get hit in the head for a living, and sometimes
I met her at Greg Jackson's. I met her at Greg Jackson's a while ago. I'm gonna go maybe 2-3 years ago, and very similar to when I first met Sarah McMahon. She just, like, the minute she speaks, you melt. She's just an absolute gem, and she was so nice to us. She took care of me and the team because we were having issues trying to get in and out of Albuquerque, trying to get back to the hotel and stuff like that. And she was just absolutely golden and fantastic. But clearly, she has an affinity for you based on this tweet, and I'm a nobody. So it is what it is.
It's us. It's us. See, again, now I'm blushing. Go on.
Now, you mentioned that you didn't take any damage. Now, there was a concern for me in your post-fight interview. I want to get to that in a moment. But your post-fight interview, I was concerned because it sounded like your jaw may have been not dislocated, but there was something wrong. And I was trying to pay attention to your bottom gum line. I was paying attention to see if there was a slant. Did you incur any damage in that manner?
But that was actually more just my mouth was dry and I was trying to work around it. That's what that was. I was trying to. I talk a lot, and basically, I wanted a couple of cool points to rifle off, and I once I started, I could taste my dry mouth, and I was trying to work around it. But thank you, my friend, for caring so deeply that even to the way I speak, you were interested in making sure I wasn't hurt. So I appreciate all the love, and what's it called? Again, you're one of the many people along my path in mixed martial arts that take imprints that I take. Part of the moments going into the cage that I am, and to be the person I am. So thank you always for your friendship, man.
Hey, listen, pleasure's all mine. Robin Black and I were talking about it yesterday, and we do blame you for the stress levels going through the roof. And it's not our fault; it's your fault. So you need to take responsibility for that, for stop stressing us out. But the performance, we were smiling ear to ear. We tried to explain, and I remember it was Ragin. It was actually Cajun Johnson that first told me. He's like, "You look at Elias, try and spar him. And when you try and spar him, you quickly realize you're not going to figure him out because not nothing. The majority of what Elias does is considered unorthodox. It's the same thing when George fought Jake Shields, for example. You're sitting there and you're fighting a guy, and the jab comes straight, the right comes straight, the hook comes across this way. With Jake Shields, he said it looked like it was doing this. It was coming up and down. I said with Elias, you look at the way Elias throws kicks, you look at his combinations, you look at his angles, it doesn't look the same as what you think a robot is supposed to look like. So when you look at yourself compete, or do you ever look at yourself after you compete and fight and say, I want to do this, I want to change that, or like, no, this is working, we're keeping this?
I always want to add layers. Again, I think what I learned from the last fight, because again, you're always, whether you win or lose, have to go back to the game, the drawing board, right? And obviously, winning puts me in a better position, and against someone that had going into it a 3-fight win streak, so that's important. And now I'm setting up my own win streak. I have a 2-fight win streak in the middleweight division. Caesar was backpedaling a lot, and I would have kept going. The kicks are my way to enter, and if someone doesn't want to be at the end of it, which I don't blame them for. But if they don't want to actually add anything to it, then it's just me taking up space. Like I've said, it takes two to dance. And if he's not actively trying to find his own offensive, then it's just going to me take the lead. I think what I will be taking into this is just more trust in my wrestling. Honestly, like even though I wanted to stand with him, I wanted to add more to it, and it took me, you know, about halfway at least through this first round, if not the second round, to get my groove. At that point, at that point, I started to peel away in regards to the attacks, and he was grabbing different chokes, and he's a tough Brazilian black belt ace on the ground, and he put me in some specific potential in positions that could have caused harm. But then I was just like, oh wait, 1 second, I just gotta get this black backpack off me. And then,
oh man, me and Robin and I were talking about that big time. We're like, it was almost like Elias was just being robotic. It was one of those, okay, you're on my back. Well, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to take you to the cage. We're going to slide down the cage. I'm going to grab this arm. I'm going to grab this arm. I'm going to turn, and I'm going to stand back up. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Not only that, I went to my corner. I was cognitive enough to get up and I go, where's Faraz? I was like honestly cognitive enough to get up and walk to my corner and just listen to them the whole way through. Coach me. In many ways, your coaches are the third eye. They see things you can't see. They see that punch. They see that rhythm. That when you're deep in there and you have those bright lights behind you, it's very difficult to sometimes pull back and be as cognitive as possible. I think one thing kind of going back into comparison to the Ultimate Fighter houses, fights, those were the easiest fights of my career, I think, because less pressure of, like, for instance, a packed 11,000 people that watched me on Sunday, and then possibly almost 1 million around the world. And then who knows how many afterwards on the internet. So like that kind of nerves that go into there don't allow you to be the exact same person you are in sparring. Once I'm able to be the person I am in sparring, I think I can be champion.
I agree. Yeah, no, I mean, there's no other way to say it, because it's a fact, because you take a look at your progression. And I remember, I think the first time I saw you fight was at the Score Fighting Series. We were I think in Hamilton. Was it Hamilton? A smaller venue. Yep. And oh my God, and the Fight Network party a couple months later. That was a disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, Elias Theodorou was walking around with the belts. This is pre-Ultimate Fighter selection. He was walking around with the 2 belts that he had won, or 1 belt, I think, at the time. But I was just 2 belts. I was in tears. I'm like, you're a disaster. Can you not be a disaster one night? No, he's going to be a disaster. And I'll tell you this. The one time, again, Elias and I go back, the one time I absolutely was like, this is my boy. He's an absolute mess. We're at the Ultimate Fighter tryouts. And he was trying out like everybody else. And I think it was Joe Silva, who couldn't say his name properly, because the guy said, you guys have to wear numbers, but he tried to say your name and he got it wrong. And you got up, you walked to the center, and you said, it's Theodorou. You turned around and you walked away. I was like, you did not do that to Joe Silva, you crazy idiot. What are you doing?
It's also the best era in UFC. But
yes.
Going back a little bit to I brought my 2 belts for a specific reason, because at the time, like you've mentioned, Robin was my manager, and he was like, hey, we're having this Fight Network party, love for you to come. You know who's going to also be there? Chris Weidman, champion. So I'm like, well, should I bring my belts? And he's like, yeah, bring your belts. And I'm like, I am. So I go and bring my belts. I wait for like an hour for the party to start. Chris is there, and I see that he doesn't have his belt. So I leave the party. I go get my belt. Who is the party at that point? The person with the belts. Because especially the people that are like, casual fans, they don't know the difference between UFC and ECC. They see 2 belts. So I had 2 belts and Chris Weidman. God, I love him. He basically says, I should have brought my belts. See? There's a method to the madness.
Well, it worked because people were paying attention. There were some UFC peeps there, and they're definitely paying attention. Some people were paying attention to your Twitter timeline, your social media timeline, and apparently some fan, I don't know if he got under your skin, but said a few things that you obviously mentioned in your post-fight interview. Can you just give us the story and the whole, how everything came to be with that, and what's the latest as well?
Oh, are you talking about the tattoo?
Yes, sir.
The tattoo? No, it wasn't. He didn't actually. No harm will. It was all love. He basically said, you say my name, you shout me out, I'll get a tattoo. I know where he's from. Dean Pascoe. I already found the tattoo artist. Black and Widow, Toronto. it looks like we're going to be setting up a date, and I'm going to get some tats as well. So it's going to be a dual thing. The next step is talking to my sponsors. We're definitely going to get Pure Plus involved. We're definitely going to get Fuel Foods involved, HPN, all my sponsors. We're going to give him the true Spartan treatment while he's in Toronto, and we're just figuring that out.
You also mentioned
my face and the best hair in MMA.
Of course.
And the best part, just like a fight, I have backups. I have 3 other people that have already said if he doesn't do it, I'll do it. So I have options.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Good for you. You also mentioned Rashad Evans and Dan Kelly potentially taking on the winner of that bout. Why those two specifically?
Well, I specifically wanted Rashad Evans. He's a name. He's someone I very much respect. Ultimate Fighter winner, and he's entering my division, and I wanted to welcome him to it. Obviously, Dan Kelly beat me to the punch. Dan has also put up a 3-fight win streak, very impressive win streak. I think he only has 1 loss to his name. So just like myself, he's only had 1 bad day at work, and we were 2 people that kind of sized each other up. I don't think he has animosity to me. I think he just doesn't, like, he never really, like, you know, he didn't like my, I don't know, personality too much, and I don't think he would lose too much sleep punching me in the face. We both have mutual respect for each other. No, don't take anything from that. But I would love to take on the winner. I think the person I really want is Rashad Evans. But if Dan Kelly beats him, he has all my respect going into this, and he would have even more going out. And I would love to fight the man that beat Rashad Evans at middleweight.
Strategically, it makes perfect sense. I know MMA math doesn't always make sense, but that makes sense to me. Good call on that. I want to ask you real quick about your performance. Have you seen your fight?
Yep, I have.
And I mean, kind of grade yourself. Do you think you give yourself an A, a B, a C? What did you learn from the fight? Obviously, it's a victory. What are the things that you were happy that you executed? And B, you know what? I think maybe I need to work on that.
I give myself a B in performance. Obviously, a passing grade because I won. And I'm in Canada, so it's the Canadian grading system, which is better. What I would anyway say, the point I'm trying to make, I'm going to get out of the hot tub and just kind of sit. Still cool side. But, the important thing I was going to say, I won at adapting. I think I lost the first round. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm going to be honest with myself, and more importantly in general, that I lost the first round, and I was able to adapt against a very tough opponent and outstrike him 79-11, I think, in the final. And he broke his arm, unfortunately. But that showed either my kick stopped him and explains why he was backpedaling a little bit, on top of the fear I think I put into him in those kicks. Because at any point he could have said no, and he did. He tried, but he didn't really succeed. I think one of those takedowns was because I was trying to do a flying kick, which I've gotten a yelling from. Don't worry, it's already been said and whatever. But at the same time, I showed myself that a Brazilian black belt is, of course, to be respected, but I have grappling that can defend against it and capitalize on it. I think there were some mistakes in regards to the trajectory that I threw him. I think I should have went for more takedowns to add up that part. But at the same time, I haven't fought in 7 months. And more importantly, like I said at the beginning, I adapted and I won 2 rounds to 1. And I improved to 14-1, which is an impressive record.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Did you have a chance to watch Amin Zahabi's performance?
Yes, a great debut. Sorry, go on.
Okay, so great debut. And I thought to myself, it is okay. My concern with Amin, was I wanted to see him get tested outside of the UFC versus somebody that would test his heart, put him into problems, put him into pressure. So Robert and Black and I spoke about this yesterday. My only thing that I believe that he needed to work on, in my opinion, was just the head movement. Everything was there. The precision was there. The distance was there. The head movement was there. And Robert sort of agreed, but then he said, wait a second, think about this. Now Faraz has 15 minutes of tape to dissect of Amin's, as opposed to him going in there and knocking this guy out in 3 minutes. So 100%. When you look at Amin's performance, what did you see? What did you like? And what kind of advice would you give to him going in to a second fight? Because clearly he's coming back.
100%. It was an exciting fight, and not to mention he did get poked in the eye. He said he couldn't really see much from the second round on. That as a handicap to be on you in your debut, having family name, obviously it got him to where he needed to be, but there's a lot of expectation for his brother, and I think he definitely performed in that regard. Kudos to the point of him getting 15 minutes to play in there, because, you know, as someone that entered into the UFC after my 8th professional fight, and once you start getting to those top 15, top 10 rankings, you don't want to go back in the wrong way in regards to momentum. And I think he had a tough opponent. He was 6-0 going into this, and he earned his 7th professional fight. And there's only up to go from here, I think, because
absolutely,
he showed moments of brilliance. He showed moments of brilliance when there's a lot of pressure on him. And I think he, as someone that saw how hard he worked and what he worked for and the game plan he worked for, I think he very much was as close to sparring day as he was on fight day. And that's huge for your debut.
Oh man, his precision was when he decided to switch gears, his precision and power and accuracy was just like, wow. I mean, it had me moving off the couch. I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy's on fire. Once he decides to go, he's on fire.
Yep. And his opponent was what, 11-5?
I don't have the exact number in front of me. Reginaldo Vieira. You know what? I don't have it in front of me, but I know he was experienced, far more experienced for sure.
He had 15 professional fights. You're talking to someone, and that shows the big difference between mixed martial arts and boxing. Everyone that's in the UFC deserves to be in the UFC. And if you no longer deserve to be in the UFC, unfortunately, the fighting game is a very hard business, and it will tell you otherwise.
It is a hard business for guys that were former champions at 170 pounds and then have to go up to 185 pounds, because I guess as you get older, cutting weight is difficult. In the co-main event, 2 guys in your division, Hector Lombard and Johnny Hendricks, competed, and Johnny Hendricks did emerge victorious. But then when he stood next to Brian Stan in the post-fight interview, Sean Rossap, managing editor here at Fightful, made a great point in our post-event podcast, and he said, "Joe, that's a real middleweight. That's a big boy." And Johnny Hendricks is you know, he's way short for that division. What's your take on Johnny Hendricks and his performance on Sunday night?
I didn't get to see it as much as, obviously, it was just right after mine. There was 2 or whatever. So I was kind of in the middle of, you know, the pace of changing, showering, suiting up, and all that jazz. But from what I saw, he took one knee shot to the package, but raised, and especially a well-needed win on his regard, because I think he was 0-4. So I actually got to do much of my weight cut around him and his coach Steven. And no, it's always good to see on the other side, like, he's a great dude. Like, I think Hendricks, I got to spend a lot of time with him. He's a great dude as well, through Evan Boris. They're really good friends. And I saw the basic process that he put in. He's going to bulk up. That's his plan. He wanted to get this fight, get this win, and now he gets to try and be a middleweight. 100% that he's going to have disadvantages, the height, and possibly the power, but he will have center of gravity on his hand, and in the way he fights, it will be a potential benefit. I think 185, unfortunately, is his home because of just the amount of actual weight cutting he's done. He's been an athlete in some capacity since he was 10. He's been cutting weight since he's 11. I've been doing this professionally for 5-6 years now, like 5 years, I think now. Yeah, I think I'm just in the 5-year mark of being a pro. But yeah, I can tell the toll it takes on my body. I can only imagine more. So yes, is there some criticism to be sent on his way to being forced in there? 100%. But I think he has a much needed win, which is great, and a revitalization in regards to his desire to be a fighter. He can do that without the added pressure of making weight. And I think that, at the very least, can extend his career. And who knows if that means he'll be entitled to contention ever? And who knows if he really even wants that? He might, because he has been champion. He has nothing to prove. He gets wins, takes that, squeezes that lemon that is athletics for all it's worth, and he walks into the sunset and provides for his family. So a good dude that I'm excited to see his hand raised. And Hector Lombard, what's it called? I got to talk to him all the way through, and I think he still has plenty of fight left in him as well.
Yeah, I can attest to also Hector Lombard being a great guy. I did some workouts with him in Vancouver when he was fighting, or was it in Calgary? We're actually in the gym early in the morning, 6:30, 7 a.m. I was jogging, he was cutting weight. I was just doing my regular workout, so he's great. But Johnny Hendricks, I can definitely attest, was one of the most fantastic guys in this game. And I had the pleasure of meeting his wife and his daughters when he first won the title. And then he told me stories later of his daughter. I think we were in Oklahoma, of his 3 daughters or 2 daughters. I'm not sure which one of the oldest ones, but they actually fight to determine who the best daughter is, and the winner gets the UFC belt. So it is kind of cute. It is kind of funny. What isn't funny was Robin Black's reaction, as well as yours truly. I posted an article on Fightful MMA regarding Derek Lewis and his post-fight comments in his victory over Travis Brown. Full disclosure, Travis Brown is someone that I've spent quality time with all over North America, and is I consider him not just a friend and acquaintance, but a great guy. I just didn't like the fact that Derek Lewis said what he said in the post-fight press conference, in his post-fight interview, which Robin Black called propagation, when Derek Lewis basically stated that Travis Brown put his hands on a woman, when a little Google research will basically show you that whole situation was basically falsified, allegedly falsified, with all parties from Travis, his ex-girlfriend, and the police basically saying none of it was the truth. So people moved on. Unfortunately, people do not move on because they'll get the headline first. And then he said something about Ronda Rousey, pulling a Clubber Lang from Rocky III, going after Rocky Balboa's wife, Adrian, and saying what he said about Ronda Rousey. And Robin Black would use 4-letter words. That's something that I would never do, or it's not just in me to say it. But I wasn't impressed, and I said it today. I've never said this before ever about a mixed martial arts or a UFC fighter in the 20 plus years that I've been covering this sport. But if I never see Derek Lewis compete again, I won't miss him, because that is not the example. I know there's been other examples out there that have been very, very bad, but that kind of stuff irks me the wrong way, because you just almost killed somebody because of a bad referee stoppage. And then you propagate stuff that basically isn't true, and then you say something about his girl. That kind of stuff, to me, irks me the wrong way. I don't know what you think about all that.
Yeah. It's also the ice. It's the salt in the wounds. It's the very fucked up feeling of getting your head bashed in, and then the emotional aspect of bringing past allegations that never panned out to be something. And there is a court system for a reason, and you don't want, especially athletes, people in the center of attention, you shouldn't necessarily be destroyed by public opinion because of the potential damage that does. Like you said, the headlines never stood a day in court. There were never any charges. There was an investigation, both in different aspects. And I think it really just takes away from a great performance that Derek actually did. I got to spend some time with him before. They, what's it called? He seemed like a great team. It's just, I don't know. I as someone who always thinks it's an honor stepping in a cage with someone, I just wouldn't pick someone who's young. And I think he had an amazing performance, and he came back from very dire straits when he almost, moving forward, he's going to have to work on those abs, because anyone looking at tape, that is a window into his defeat, his stomach. He's a powerful boy, but that man needs to get what's it called? Some more strength and conditioning in certain regards, and it shows the weak point. And if he's one in the top 5, just like himself. But going back to the bigger point, the idea of picking someone when they're down, especially putting it in the sphere where Robin's talking about the court of public opinion, and he's already went through that. There was no wrongdoing, right? So I don't know. Bringing up the past in that regard is pros and cons in every single way, and it doesn't take away with what the I don't know. It's just part of my French. It's a fucked up situation.
And Robin said that, he kind of broke it down and said, look, Joe, if my wife left for Justin Bieber, I'd be pissed. Right. And that's basically what happened is Travis's girl, but he left for Ronda Rousey. So it's sort of that angle there. But, we kind of put some smiles over it. We joked around and, I said, look, my wife's a huge Enrique Iglesias fan. If she leaves me for Enrique Iglesias, does that open the door for me to attempt to try something and get a hold of Sofia Vergara or Kate Upton? But, we were just joking around about it, having a good time about it. But it is sensitive when you think about it, because it's one of those situations where it just spun the wrong way. But listen, it is what it is. It happened. And Travis Brown, I liked his post on social media, thanking everyone for the support. And, he'll just have to live and learn from this. And hopefully, he doesn't get cut by the UFC. But there is a concern now with all the different changes that are happening in the UFC. They're trying to save money. You mentioned the new ownership with the different regime right now. They're trying to save money. Travis Brown makes a lot of money. Carla Esparza, she lost on this card here. Sam Cecilia, he lost on this card here. I mean, there could be some potential cuts here happening with the UFC just after this one show in Halifax.
I don't think you're wrong. And it's going to be interesting to see the new structure. And I think at the positive end, there are emerging different organizations that are making money. You have Bellator, you have Risen, you have ONE FC, and I've heard other even smaller promotions that are decent money. Then obviously the more important thing is fighter safety moving in, but I digress on that aspect. Safety standards and good shows, then there are options. There are options out there. So this powerhouse of UFC is transferring into a different form, a leaner, meaner UFC, for better or worse.
Speaking of options, other than being in a hot tub, we got about...
I got a pool over there.
We got about 7 minutes to go here. Where does Elias Theodorou go from here now? Fight is done. You emerged victorious. Obviously, you want to, Faraz and I have called this, don't go back to the gym. Got to get the electrical system to sort of rejuvenate itself. Don't shock it any more than what you've done for a training camp. But what is your life going to consist of over the next week, over the next couple of months? I mean, where do you go from here?
Yep. Well, immediate. I got to eat gross for a day. I'm really pumped about that. I had my car down in Montreal, and I'm now obviously in Mississauga, Toronto area. So I right after my fight, I took a flight back to Montreal and drove all the way home.
I know that drive. That drive. Oh yeah.
Luckily 401 all the way down. You know how it is. But at the same time, I'm in the pool. I'm in the jacuzzi, kind of resting up. I'm gonna go see my physio, mild detox. I'm gonna get them to work on the bumps and bruises. There's probably about 2 weeks of physio in just different contusions from getting kicked, from punching, and all that stuff. That I got soft tissue damage that I got to work in the right way. At the same time, I'm going to slowly start next week getting back in the gym. Some much needed makeup time with the girlfriend, and then I have a bunch of projects on the run. I'm already talking to people. Obviously, Per Plus is a big announcement coming out in 2016. I have 2-3 other sponsors that are in the works that are going to, again, change the game, and I'm going to be the first to do it.
I'm trying to think of what did you and I have at that movie after the movie showing one time? We went to the burger place, I think, across the street from the theater. But I need to ask you specifically, what are your meals going to look like over the next few days?
Well, I'm going to have epic meals in between. The one cool one, Wendy's has a bunch of like $3 burgers going on, like with chickens. I'm probably going to do some kind of food challenge there. Maybe try and beat my record in regards to 13 or 14 burgers.
Wow! Oh my
but
God,
we'll
Elias!
We'll see. No, I'm half kidding. In regards to that, I'm still back on the Feel Foods, my meal sponsor. In reality, I'm an athlete 365. I'm looking to get back in the gym, although it's going to be a progression in the next 2 weeks. A week off, a week slowly getting back in the gym. Like maybe 3 days, 4 days in the week, a week in the gym, and then moving forward, getting back into the swing of things and learning and growing. There's always someone, and if I'm not in the top 15 next time, I'm pretty damn close. So I want to fight May, June is when I'm kind of aiming for. At the same time, I have a bunch of different projects like we talked about. I have 2 key signature sponsors that are kind of come out of the works in the next little bit. I have obviously Per Plus. I have a potential tattooing I need to deal with. I'm also going to California, specifically LA, to work on a couple of the TV show ideas that I'm working on, and then the announcement of my movie. I will be the lead character of a movie called Street Fighters. It looks like we're going to be partnering up with Capcom because it's going to be a comedy, a huge stretch. I play a UFC fighter who gets injured, and I no longer can compete. So instead of competing, I have to find myself in a new way, and I do that through competitive video gaming. And obviously, Street Fighter is the game of choice.
That's awesome. That's me. I saw some of the tweets, and I saw one of the gentlemen. I don't know if it was the director or the executive producer posting a lot of stuff there. So I was, I never want to say anything, although it is public knowledge. I thought I'd leave it up to you to sort of make that announcement. Speaking of announcement, one of our boys, George St. Pierre, it's official. He's back. Yeah, I know. So now it's a matter of determining and discussing. We got about 3 minutes here. Determining and discussing who does he fight. I mean, Robin Black, I gave Robin Black the analogy of like, look, if he gets that fight that he was supposed to get with Michael Bisping and hypothetically defeats the count, don't be surprised if that long-awaited Anderson Silva-George St. Pierre fight takes place. And Robin kicked it to a higher notch and said, look, with the UFC with the UFC owners now, they're all about making that money now. Don't be surprised if it's GSP Anderson Silva right now. And don't be surprised if GSP can cut down to 155 and fight Conor McGregor. And I thought, oh my God, wow. Must be nice to be George, but oh my God, like what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, well, I think if what's it called? If it's a McGregor fight at any point, I think he has to go down. He can never go down, then up then down. So he's going to try for 155. And I have a little conspiracy with the Nate Diaz fight, the first one. I think Conor, when he fought, what do you call it?
Nate
the first time. I think George was there for a reason in the stands. But I think he can make 155. He says he can make 155, possibly at least once. And for that kind of money, and if it comes to terms, they know what the kind of deal is. I don't want him to necessarily, again, even if it's Bisping, I think that the idea behind that is it doesn't look like a fight where he necessarily could get hurt. Bisping shows he has power, but would you see George potentially fighting a Yoel Romero right now? Would you see him fighting a Jacare Souza? Do you see him fighting a Luke Rockhold? No, styles makes fights. Obviously, the idea is someone who Bisping is someone I look up to, but he isn't necessarily the most dangerous fight in the sense of he can beat you by points, and obviously he can beat you by knockout if you take him lightly, like he did with Luke. Even Woodley is a dangerous fight for him. Someone like Wonder Boy Thompson is a dangerous fight for him because of the style. It's going to be really interesting to see who they put him up against. I would love personally the Anderson Silva fight, but I totally understand the McGregor fight as a basic counter to the Mayweather option.
Absolutely. All right. Before we let you go, any final words from hashtag the main event, hashtag the Spartan, hashtag my boy?
My boy, Blue. What's it called? Pleasure. I'm all smiles here going into the fight. bumps and bruises, but I'll be back in a week or two, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it. As always, love you, my man. A pleasure chatting, and I'm really excited for what's to come, and I'm excited to share with everyone. And last and foremost, I guess you can find me on @Elias Theodorou, both on Instagram and Twitter. And then, thanks to all my sponsors that believe in me as well. I have all of them kind of going through the cycle now of my own things on social media. So stay tuned to see the many different brands that believe in me.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Elias Theodorou, like you said, make sure you do follow him online via social media @Elias Theodorou. I can't believe I actually survived this podcast. I didn't think I was going to with him being in a hot tub. But of course, Julie Kedzie did reply to when I said I was incorrect. Elias Theodorou is actually in a hot tub. This is getting awkward, LOL. And she replied with, I got to log off. I will leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's not Julie talking about me. It's not talking about us. She's talking about Elias. This is awkward. This is the Fightful MMA podcast. By all means, Elias, you want to say something quick?
No, I don't know.
I saw that coming. That's why I went. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Elias doing crazy things off camera because if he doesn't speak, you can't see what he's doing. But it is what it is. We want to thank you. Don't forget, tomorrow we will have Sean Pearson who will give his thoughts on what went down in UFC Halifax and much more regarding the George St. Pierre scenario. Tomorrow, likely, we will go live at 9 p.m. Eastern. But for now, I want to thank Elias Theodorou. I want to thank you, everyone who tuned in live. Thank you, Julie Kedzie, for all those tweets and making us laugh. And, of course, to everyone tuning in later on Stitcher and on iTunes. Don't forget, FightfulMMA.com for all of your mixed martial arts news. I am Showdown Joe. Make sure you do follow me on social media @Showdown Joe. For now, we say goodbye.